What's up, guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. Today I'm diving into a movie that I think truly defined the gusto, the bravado, and the spectacle that just made us love 80s action movies. I'm talking about the 85 classic starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as John Matrix, a man that carries trees on his shoulders, enjoys his ice cream, and when his daughter is kidnapped, he goes commando. Now, in the early 80s, audiences could not get enough of the action genre, and no two stars were bigger, literally, than Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. Now, these guys may be grandpa buddies now, but in the 80s, as each began their rise, there was no doubt a dislike and a competition between them to outdo the other at the box office, which was a rivalry that would treat all of us fans to a buffet of action flicks for a few decades. While Stallone was in his little world building Rocky and Rambo franchises, Arnold was building a couple of franchises of his own. Conan the Barbarian dropped to a lot of praise in 1982, putting him on Hollywood's radar. The sequel, Conan the Destroyer, was a decline coming out in 1984, but that would also be the same year Arnold would star as the T-800 in James Cameron's The Terminator, which would certainly be a boost to his career.
I'll be back.
Then would come 1985. Now, this was admittedly the year of Sylvester Stallone. Rocky IV and Rambo II would be the number 3 and 4 top earning films at the global box office that year. Rambo II would also, I think, change the game of just blockbuster action flicks overall, with massive practical effects and a staggering body count as John Rambo destroys an entire army to rescue some POWs. Now, on his little part of the world, seeing this, Arnold didn't want to be left out, so we would get to see him as John Matrix in his own one-man army movie, and surprisingly, the first moderately humanized character that he would take on. Which really is a weird thing to say, because there's no doubt he's superhuman in this movie, but this would be the first time we would get to see Arnold in a contemporary setting, and between all the moments of killing and the frequent feats of strength, he was just a normal guy with a young daughter. The dialogue, unlike Arnold's previous films, was opened up much more, and it would make Commando, I think, the introduction to the Schwarzenegger double entendres, the one-liners, and the cheesy puns that we've loved from him over the years. Because at the time, playing Conan and a Terminator really required a lack of personality and little emotional expression, and playing John Matrix would be the first time Arnold would be free to kind of let his charm shine, and I think it worked perfectly for this just delightfully ridiculous action flick. It would also kind of cement Arnold as a bona fide action hero too, because he delivers almost as many fantastically cheesy lines as he does joyfully gratuitous kills.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
Principal photography on Commando would begin in April of 1985, and filming would take place in various places throughout Southern California for 45 days. Premiere weekend would be on October 4th, 1985, and Commando would open at number 1 at the box office, holding that place for 3 straight weeks. It would finish with $57 million on just a $9 million budget, and that's not even counting the home video market, which was massive in the 80s, which I think would make this film a financial success. I'm sure I came close to wearing my VHS tape out as a kid watching this movie so many times. The plot is bare bones, with Matrix having his daughter kidnapped by a South American dictator and his cronies. He's forced to travel to the fictional country of Valverde to assassinate a political figure, but of course Arnold escapes, and he has 11 hours to locate and rescue his daughter. This is the same amount of time that the flight to Valverde would take. It's all very simple, but more than effective for just a fun, mindless 90-minute journey of comical dialogue, excessive action, and Arnold Schwarzenegger at full speed, just killing anything in his way and dispensing laughably bad lines along the way that are also as equally endearing. I mean, this movie is set in a hyper-realistic world. It knows exactly what it is, and I think the self-awareness in Commando is what makes it stand the test of time.
And why not they just call him Girl George? It will cut down all the confusion, I think.
You're a funny guy, Sally. I like you. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
I'll be back, Benny.
What'd you do with Sully?
I let him go.
The Green Beret's gonna kick your big ass.
I eat green berets for breakfast. And right now I'm very hungry.
Elaine, I hope you're watching the clothes because I can't take my eyes off the passion.
And I don't think there's any doubt that Arnold's screen presence alone was able to pull this movie up from the ranks of B action flicks to make it a theatrical success, and rightfully so, as he does feel larger than life. It's a non-stop showcase of his physical ability, yet somehow it's all fit snugly into this tightly paced rescue mission that manages to thread all the action sequences together just enough. But John Matrix is not alone in his mission. He gets a partner named Cindy, the flight attendant in the wrong place at the wrong time, played by Ray Dawn Chong. They actually do have a charming chemistry together, despite being such an odd and unlikely pair. There really is no reason for her to even invest in Matrix's problems, but it was an action movie from the 80s. It was a much simpler time, so you kind of just roll with her getting swept up in all the chaos and firing off rocket launchers without needing to really overthink it.
As soon as you're getting into a bigger-than-life character that Arnold was playing, and we're really trying to make Arnold work in a contemporary setting, which he really had not been in, and we really talked about slowly moving the bar, we thought what would mitigate all this would be somebody who noticed how preposterous it was.
I set up the tragedy and the reality, and then he gets to take the air out of it. I was the Laurel to his Hardy in that, you know, I'm worried, and the more I did that, the better his smug but funny, you know, flippant comments, the better they would ricochet and bounce off.
Wait for me! Don't you go anywhere! Who the hell are you, huh? Oh! You steal my car, you rip the seat out, you kidnap me, you ask me to help you find your daughter, which I very kindly do.
And every action movie gets an action movie hero, which means we need to get an action movie villain. And with Vernon Wells as the chain mesh wearing Captain Bennett, this movie certainly does have an eccentric one.
You know, we've gone away from that having the wonderful character of the hero and the villain. You know, now your villains become terribly wishy-washy. Mine is a scary bad guy. You know that if you confront me, I'm going to break your neck and you know, suck out your brains.
When I met him the first day, I said, God, how is he going to pull off playing a mean guy? He's so nice. But when you say action, he can be so mean that I look at him and I say, wait a minute, what's happening here? You know, and he comes with this knife at me and he starts fighting and all this kind of thing. And he's incredible the way he gets into it. And so we work very well together, yeah, absolutely, and he's scary.
I think Wells' Bennett is both amazingly good and comically bad, yet it all works like it was just meant to be. He really is no match for John Matrix. I mean, I kind of sort of wish Bill Duke's Cook would have been the main heavy, but at the same time, without Wells' performance, we wouldn't have gotten these just amazing cinematic moments.
I don't need no guns! I'm gonna kill you now!
I mean, it's so bad it's good. You don't know what Bennett wants more, if he wants to fight Matrix or if he wants to fuck him, yet the end result is 80s action movie cheese at its finest.
That's what you want to do, right?
I kill you, John.
Come on, let the girl go. It's between you and me. Come on, Bennett. Let's party.
Arnold is a true superhero in this movie, just without the costume. The film opens with Arnold carrying a tree over his shoulder like an Austrian Paul Bunyan, but that's just the appetizer. He has super hearing, he also has super smelling, he can jump from planes, he rips the seats out of cars, he's flipping phone booths, he can toss grown men around like rag dolls, he's a pilot, he's a boat skipper, not to mention one hell of a gardener. He can do it all, and watching each minute of this nonsense is absolutely amazing. Commando has a great instrumental score. It fits nice and snugly into the genre standard 90-minute runtime. It begins quickly with bodies dropping as Matrix's old team is being picked off, and it really is such an engaging movie to get swept up in, with a ton of action-packed moments that all do escalate nicely until we see Matrix mowing down a wave of soldiers with a variety of weapons in the finale. I always loved the opening scene of this movie with Bill Duke as the garbage man. I still randomly think of this sequence when I'm pulling the trash out to my curb on an early morning sometimes. The entire mall sequence is filled with so much fun nostalgia as Arnold is just manhandling the mall cops and swinging around from the ceiling. And outside of the finale, I really think the fight between Cook and Matrix in the hotel room is the best one-on-one fight in this movie. I love watching these two guys battle it out, and I mean, hey, you gotta give Commando huge kudos for being progressive, because rarely in the 80s in an action movie would you see the girl having a guy bent over in the bed unless she was a topless nurse taking his temperature the old-fashioned way. But I mean, hands down, the best sequence in Commando, to me at least, is when Matrix is wounded and out of bullets and taking guys out with random tools from the garden shed. To me, Commando is one of those movies that just oozes 80s action movie awesomeness. When Matrix hits the compound at the end, this movie writes the dictionary definition of gratuitous, over-the-top violence. It's just, I don't know, heartwarming to sit back and enjoy the body counts pile up, and even the blatant flaws are able to result in more of nostalgic charm, and that really means you're onto something when even the bad things that you do come off as kind of good. There are visible dummies in front of the buildings. The buildings themselves are clearly thin, hollow shells. You can see the springboards, and even these soldiers must be on the Valverde gymnastics team because their form is impeccable, yet still, none of this seems to get in the way of the appeal in watching Arnold launching rockets and ripping off on his machine gun and taking down a bottomless supply of cardboard bad guys. The camera work is nice and smooth. I think the daytime setting provides a lot of visual appeal, and it's so much fun watching Arnold in full action mode, working his way throughout this playground of this massive compound, taking people out. It's just an iconic finale for 80s action movies. Matrix is killing in so many different ways, and like it should for any 80s action movie, it comes down to the one-on-one showdown between Matrix and Bennett. This classic showdown is more memorable for its dialogue than its technical action, but I mean, at the same time, it's also the perfect on-the-nose closing for this action movie that really knew exactly what it was. And that concludes my look back at Commando, guys. This was one of my favorite action movies growing up as a kid. I just loved this VHS copy. I cherished it. And even as an adult, I can appreciate this movie for just the ridiculous ride that it is. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this movie. What are some of your favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies? I'd love to hear some of your guys' opinions. And until the next video, I'll catch you guys at the movies.
It's Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Flag of war. You gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?
See you later. I'm gonna go this way now.